this evening. And Jolene, would you please take roll call?
Councilmember Erickson is absent this evening. Councilmembers Larson,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Valento,
Here.
Mayor Roberts.
Here. And if you're able, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Council, we have an agenda in front of us tonight. Is anyone willing to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
A motion, a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, there's no change to the agenda, but I'll just note that there are additional documents related to the airport work that's on the regular agenda.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We have an agenda. Item 5, awards and presentations. First item is the 2026 Lakes Area TV budget, and Paul Peterson.
If you're gonna award me something, that'd be great. I didn't know that was part of it. So, hello, thanks for having me here today. I apologize, normally this budget should have been approved last year, but we have three big things that are our whole, everything that costs us money, and one of them is health insurance, and we didn't learn what was gonna happen with that till halfway through December, and your December meeting was booked up, so I'm here in January. So hopefully you approve it, we'll see what happens. I can kind of go over really quick highlights of what we do. We build our streaming a little more each year. We get it bigger and bigger. Right now, we're mid-hockey season. We just had a hockey game. We had 1,600 people watch. That's best for us for hockey. We usually get between 500 and 1,000. And so with that, we're going to try and work towards sponsorships and help make a little more for the station off of that. This year, we are on track to have close to 250,000 views on our YouTube channel for the year, and that goes up every year. We gain about 100 subscribers a month pretty consistently. So that's kind of cool for a town of 20,000. That seems pretty cool. Football, I think I brought that up before. Football, we had a 9,000 viewer game. That was kind of neat. I still work with the schools a lot. I have a studio in the school for those of you who don't know. I work with students, I work with teachers. Just had a teacher reach out a couple of weeks ago and help them with a production. They were doing a live production that was half recorded, half live. I helped the students work through all that, and they kind of all know that they can call me for anything video, audio, production, streaming related, and I love doing that. I still maintain the system I put in there like 3 years ago that is 100% student run in the auditorium. They record and stream their own performances, concerts, everything streams through my YouTube channel. We take it off that, we put it on our channel. Last year I had a kid wanted to get into creating video games, so I created an independent study 3D animation course for him and worked through him and worked with the teachers for that. This year I had another student wants to learn film editing, so I created an independent study film editing course. This is all with free software. So they unfortunately, they usually have Chromebooks. It doesn't run on that, but any other computer, I do it so there's no cost to them. 100% online. They only email me when they get stuck, and I go meet with them and kind of help them out. And other than the school, I just kind of look forward to working with everybody in the community and the partnerships with government, with businesses, with community members. I try to make myself accessible, so if anybody needs help with anything, they know they can call me, and I will, if I'm available, I will be more than happy to help. For our budget this year, or next year, now this year, as usual, we have a decline in cable subscribers every year, so our dollars go down. We cross that line, we will be in the red every year, and that's just how it is, and I make it up with doing production services for the channel. Last year I had to make up $9,000, I made up $9,000. This year I make up a little bit more, so we're gonna get a little more aggressive with our sponsorship programs and stuff. And I don't really see a problem with that. Mainly with our live streaming stuff, I can guarantee people, 50, 60,000 eyes are gonna see their commercial. And a couple of years ago, I actually got nominated for an Emmy. I made commercials for 30 years, and I can make them a crazy high-end commercial. So I don't think we'll have a problem with that. Working with MACTA, talked to Mark a little bit about this. There's a cable station in Woodbury that just signed a broadband franchise agreement. It's always been cable franchise agreements since the 80s. And they had an agreement, so their cable or their cable whatever channel there has to access them, and they came up with a broadband agreement, so they get a percentage of their broadband dollars. And that's kind of what MACTA, who is the organization that works with all the cable stations, we're trying to figure out ways to incorporate that into us. So hopefully within a few years, I come to you and you can help me go to state legislature, and hopefully we get some agreement with that. For expenses this year, we cut our expenses down to nothing about 6 years ago. We literally, our operating expenses, our office supplies are $150 a year, you know, other than insurance, rent, and what was the other one? Salary. So those are the only three things that cost us money, and those unfortunately go up a little bit each year as our income goes down. So we just kind of work with those. One side note is we have had the city of Scandy doing our bookkeeping since as long as I've been at the station, and the bookkeeper there retired in 2025, and the new bookkeeper that came in didn't really want to do our books anymore. So I looked at a few companies in town here, but our cable commission wanted me to see if Columbus or Forest Lake was open to taking over our books, and Cheryl Jenkins in Columbus was very open to it. She used to work at the IRS, and so we've been working with that transition. It's probably going to finalize this month. So she's working with the bookkeeper there, and they agreed to take it over, at least for the first year, the same amount we've been paying in Scandia forever. So if it goes up, we'll see, but they were willing to just try it for that. She didn't think it would be that tough. So we will have a new bookkeeper next year going forward. And that's about it. I love doing this. I have a ball doing this every day. I love going out and talking to people, meeting people. I get to play with super cool toys and just make stuff. So if there's any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Any questions?
Not at this time, thank you.
No, just some comments. Your team does a great job, and we're so fortunate to have you in the community. And so as long as we can sustain that, and if there's different funding mechanisms that we need to look into similar to that broadband, I'd be all in favor of that. So thanks for everything you do.
And I might try and get creative in the future and see, we talked about in the past of maybe just partnering with the city of Forest Lake and us getting kind of wrapped into that somehow, some way. I don't know what the options are for that, but eventually it's going to tip a little too far where we can only make up so much. And the rule is we're not supposed to take away production dollars from other companies in town, but right now it just isn't even close to that. So yeah, I appreciate you guys hanging with me.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Yep, and I think you have to at least vote on giving us the same percentage you give us every year. So, and I don't know what, I think it's like 79% or something of what comes in. Do you know what that is now?
Mr. Mayor?
So there's a Midco fee. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, my apologies, I didn't note on the agenda that there was an action requested for this item, but it looks like Mr. Peterson is requesting an action related to this item.
Approving the 26 budget.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
It's just not noted on the agenda itself.
Okay, all right. Okay, any other questions for Paul? With that, I'm willing to entertain a motion to approve the Lakes TV budget, if anyone wants to make that.
I'll make the motion to approve the 2026 Lakes Area TV budget.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
I just have one quick thing. Similar to, I believe it was last year or the year before, I discussed with Amanda on the record, since I'm on the Cable Commission and I do vote on the budget, if I should abstain, and then it was just quickly discussed on the record that I should abstain. So my motion tonight will be an abstention.
Love it. Okay, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
All right, motion carries.
Awesome. Thank you
Great,
much.
thank you. 5B, Annual Parks and Recreation Report, Kyle Young and Don Thiessen.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here. Looking forward to another year with the parks. Obviously, first year for me. Commission pretty new, starting in March. I think we had maybe a couple folks that were part of the commission in prior years, but all in all, I think, in my opinion, it was great. There's a lot of things to do in parks. There's a lot of things that maybe haven't been done in the past that we're trying to tackle, and I think the commission and myself were pretty excited about all the things that came away. So we're looking forward to another year and hopefully just keep things moving forward. So we're all excited, and it's been a good experience so far.
Any questions for Kyle? And then, go ahead, Don.
Thanks, Mayor. Don Tyson, I'm Chair of the Parks and Rec Commission, and also we have our Vice Chair, Karen Moorhead, here tonight also. As Kyle said, it has been a great year. In the annual report, you see a lot of things that were accomplished, and looking forward to next year. I do want to thank 4 groups specifically, starting with the staff. It's been great working with the city staff, community development, Public Works Director Dave, and certainly Kyle. Every member of the commission comments is, how many more staff does Kyle have? Because he gets so much done. And we know he's a one-man band right now, so hats off to Kyle. Certainly my fellow commissioners, it's been great working with that group. We're certainly coming together, and we are all excited about next year. You as the council, we appreciate your support, and what we really try to do is look at every issue thoughtfully and thoroughly. So when a recommendation comes to you, you know, we really have vetted everything. Doesn't mean you don't have to, you're gonna agree with every recommendation, but in fact, we'd be surprised if you do. But we do take the work seriously, so appreciate your support on that. And then finally, the residents. We've had residents show up to our meetings with issues, questions, and it takes time to show up, but we do need residents to show up, and we need to hear from residents. That's what we're here for. And so I want to thank those residents in the last year too that have come to the Parks Commission for whatever reason for us. So, but thank you. We're looking forward to 26.
A quick question, do we have an opening on the commission? Or are we fully, thought we had an opening? Go
If
ahead.
I may,
Yes, go
Mr.
ahead.
Mayor, we had 2 commission appointments for the initial appointment of this commission that were 1-year appointments. Ms. Moorhead and Ms. Madsen, yes, I was going to say Herdina. Ms. Moorhead has expressed her interest in continuing her service on that commission. And so we do currently have 1 additional vacancy, and I have submitted information to Chair Thiessen and Councilmember Valento about that resident who's interested in serving on that commission, and we're working through a process to bring forward a recommendation to council for appointment.
Great. Anything else, council, any questions or thoughts?
Thank you very much for all your hard work, for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add, you know, these commissions are invaluable to us and to help out the council and make these decisions. And it's great to have as much community involvement as possible. So thank you for your service, and Kyle for all you do, and look forward to another good year. Right, item 6, open forum. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the council. Please state your name and address and limit it to around 3 minutes. Susan Young.
Hi, my name is Susan Young, 9950 199th Street North here in Forest Lake, and I am currently the president of the Forest Lake Rotary Club. And it's Rotary plunge time. It is not boulder plunge time, it is Rotary plunge time. In Forest Lake, this Rotary Club works very, very hard to help nonprofits, clubs, sports programs, groups in the community that are doing good stuff, but who need money to be able to do that. And the Rotary Plunge is, quite frankly, the easiest way that I know of to raise money for an organization. I was a Girl Scout mom, a soccer mom, a debate mom. Trying to raise money for those organizations is, 1, really hard, and 2, you get a few pennies when you sell one of those boxes of Girl Scout cookies, and then mom has them in the freezer for the next 6 months, okay? This way, basically what you do is you form a team, you get folks to say, we'll watch you plunge, and by the way, LATV live streams it, so grandma and grandpa in Arizona can sponsor their soccer kid to jump in Forest Lake and hear them scream. It's great, it's wonderful, it's just a phenomenal opportunity. We really appreciate the work that the city does to help us out. We put that great big old tent there, and I make sure that I'm fire compliant and everybody's happy with that. We appreciate the partnership that we have, But I know that each of you and a bunch of the folks that are watching has a nonprofit or a club or an organization that is really near and dear to your heart. And there has been a history of city council and the mayor jumping in the plunge. Now, the last couple of years, it's been a little lean, but I know that y'all have organizations, I'm thinking the Legion and the 4th of July celebration, that really could use some money. And we have organizations that easily raise $14,000, $15,000, $16,000. So I wanted to let folks know on the Forest Lake Rotary Facebook page and our Forest Lake Rotary website is all of the information. We've got a new organization that we're working with this year, and even I can make the tech stuff work so that I can form a team and get emails out to supporters. Again, appreciate, want to see everybody there February 28th. We're going to have a good time. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Blair Ransauer?
I think he's here for for the public
Okay,
hearing this evening.
I see that, yeah. Okay. Anyone else like to speak to council on any matter? All right, we will go to the consent agenda. Council, we have a consent agenda in front of us. I would like to make the motion that we approve consent agenda number 7, item 7A through O, and then Q through T, moving P to our first regular agenda item.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we have consent agenda approved. All right, with that, we will move item P to our first agenda item, regular agenda action item, and that is to accept the resignation of police chief and declare a vacancy at that position. So I wanted to pull this from the consent agenda just to highlight this. After 26 years on the Forest Lake Police Department, 15 of those, which have been chief, our police chief, Richard Peterson, is putting his resignation for retirement. And so there'll be time for speeches and different things as we get close. The resignation doesn't go into effect until April 3rd. But again, I just wanted to pull that aside and highlight that and give the public the opportunity to thank him for his service here before he leaves us. And I know he'll never totally leave us, but just an appreciation for all you've done, Rick. It's been quite a career you've had. And so with that, I will make a bittersweet motion to accept the resignation of Richard Peterson and also declare the vacancy of a position. And I believe the policy committee has decided to look in-house first. And so with that, is there a second?
I will second the motion.
Great. We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, 8A, zoning text amendment, wireless communication towers, and Abby.
Thank you, Mayor Roberts. Members of the council, tonight before you is a zoning text amendment pertaining to wireless communication towers, an application submitted by Buell Consulting LLC. Buell Consulting has submitted a zoning text amendment. Even though in your packet up on the screen, it does talk about Hosanna Lutheran Church, this would be a city-wide amendment that would be applicable citywide. However, this is in anticipation of a future application coming forward for a new tower at Hosanna Lutheran Church. Tonight's request before you is to amend the zoning to allow wireless towers as conditional uses in the single-family residential zoning district. And the kind of purpose would be to allow for this stealth camouflage tower at Hosanna and similar sites in the future. Tonight before you is to hold a public hearing, and then I put in there, I carry over from Planning Commission, but you will either approve or deny a request this evening. So the applicant's proposal is kind of broadband across our wireless towers. Right now, the existing requirement in the code is that you'd have to have 10 acres. First off, we don't allow for towers in the single-family residential zoning district. In all other residential zoning districts where we do allow for towers, we require a minimum of 10 acres. The applicants are proposing reducing that to 2.5 acres, and only for those that are on institutionally used properties. Additionally, in our current code, we do require a tower height setback from any residential dwelling on another parcel and a 1 times the tower height from all property lines. The proposed requirement would reduce that to allow for a tower setback, 1 tower height from any residential dwelling on another parcel, and then allow for an engineered fall zone. So essentially having an engineer's report indicating that setback requirement from property lines. Currently in our code, we allow for 100-foot towers with a 15-foot attached apparatus. However, the applicant is proposing to just increase that tower to a maximum height of 125 feet. And then currently in our code, we have a 1-mile separation between towers, and they are asking the city's consideration to eliminate this requirement. So the Planning Commission did hold a hearing on this last month. They did make a recommendation to allow for towers in as a conditional use in the single-family zoning district. Included on that map there shows all of the single-family zoned properties within the city, and the purple are those 10+ acres. The 1 to 3 acres in orange is kind of that area where that would be eligible if we allowed for that zoning district change. Anywhere that's essentially kind of that orange to purple in the future under the current proposal. What staff is recommending is that we retain the existing tower standards of a 10-acre minimum, the existing setbacks 2 times the height to a dwelling, and in fact, we've expanded that based on the Planning Commission's recommendation, that not just to a dwelling, but any dwelling or accessory structure there too, and 1 times the height to property lines. And then 1 mile separation would be retained, and that we would include the existing height limit of 100 and 115 feet, with that 100 feet plus that 15-foot apparatus. In other words, the staff has been supportive and the Planning Commission has been supportive of amendments to allow for towers by conditional use in the single-family zoning district, but we would not support many of the other changes that are being proposed. So tonight for your discussion and action, staff recommends that you hold a public hearing and receive public comments, close the public hearing and discuss, and then take action on ordinance number 765, amending Title 15, Chapter 153 pertaining to wireless towers. I will say I shortened up that ordinance name there for you so you don't have to kind of go through all those subsections. I'm happy to answer any questions now in advance of the public hearing or after there's public comment, and I do know the applicant is here to give testimony as part of the hearing. Questions?
I do have one. Why did we kick out the institutionalized uses?
It's not common for cities to tie their zoning district standards to future land uses. So the requests uses can change at any point on a property. One of the things that the city could consider, however, is tying it to that future land use of institutional, which would limit properties even more so throughout the city. I'm going to pull up a map here that wasn't included in your packet, but we did do some analysis, which does show the limitation here of properties that if we did limit them to single-family zoned, guided for institutional use, these would be the areas that would be permissible. One thing that isn't shown on here is things like city parkland or other types of publicly owned parcels of open space or those sorts of things. That could be another consideration. Simply put, I think there was concern that uses can change, and we've never really tied our uses to the future land use map. Now, that being said, if the city council wanted to restrict the, start small, I would recommend that we did reinstate that we would tie those to institutional uses as part of the future land use map.
Thank you.
Remind me, did we approve and has something been put up out at Cohenkamp Park as far as a tower?
No, AT&T had proposed or early conversations with the city, but had not come forward with any sort of plan to put in a tower. They didn't move forward with any sort of the neighborhood meeting that the city had kind of asked of them before we'd move forward. We do know that areas east of probably Second Lake on the north side and the south side of the lake have coverage limitations. You know, I hear a lot from residents that they're fine, you know, outside, maybe in the house it gets a little spotty, in their vehicles they get a little spotty. Staff is very much in support of expanding our tower ordinance to allow for more towers. But I do think that we should be trying to limit kind of a wholesale to all single family greater than 2.5 acres. That is very concerning of how many towers we could end up having.
And I apologize if this was in here somewhere. Would all these in these residential areas be that stealth or camouflaged
No,
tower?
no.
All right, with that, we will, at 6:25, open up a public hearing on this item. Is there anyone here to speak to this item?
Hi, good evening. I appreciate your time, the opportunity to present our project. We can, you know, eventually, if the text amendment is accepted, we would go into more detail with the conditional use process. In general, what we're trying to do, AT&T is trying to enhance their coverage and reliability, specifically for emergency services on the lake and on the south side of the lake in the residential area. So obviously, incorporating the need for towers into residential areas and semi-rural areas like Forest Lake can be challenging. People don't want to live next to giant towers. Completely understand that. In these scenarios, what we do is try to find ways like churches, water tanks, you know, public parks where you can put up structures that you can camouflage and blend into the existing use. So that's in general what we're proposing to do at Hosanna. The reason we proposed kind of an extensive list of changes is to give us, and specifically in this case, you know, as much latitude to find a spot on the existing parcel that would work with the church. And then in the future, not limiting, you know, not running into a situation where in institutional use, a church might be less than, you know, 2.5 acres, or less than 10 acres, I'm sorry. And not, you know, right out of the gate limiting that as an opportunity when it otherwise might make sense. So that's the reason kind of why we suggested that as part of the text amendment. We understand the Planning Commission's position, so as proposed, it would work, you know, for our proposed project. So I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
So could you state your name and organization for the
Yeah,
record?
my name is Blair Ransom. My company's called Buell Consulting. So we're retained on behalf of AT&T to handle the leasing, handle all the zoning process up through construction.
Any questions? Okay, there might be some as we go on, but thank you.
All right, appreciate it.
Anyone else want to speak to this item? State your name and address.
Susan Young, 9950 199th Street North, and speaking solely as a resident. About 20 years ago, a large tower was put up, not on my property, but definitely within limits. And for the last 20 years, I've been trying to grow trees to try and screen that. The problem with these towers is they are so freaking huge. And when you have a home where you're trying to use your deck, or you're enjoying your semi-rural property, they just don't fit. And so having these limitations, especially on the institutional sites, I'm also concerned because we're getting more and more wind, high winds, and I think that it was wise for staff to recommend the 2 times the height of the tower from a residence or a building. The trick is not thinking about who's there now, it's what we're looking at for the future. So appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone here to speak to this item? At 6:30, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to council.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just go over a couple of things. One, Abby, you mentioned that these are allowable or would be allowable through a CUP. I just want to remind everybody that that is a permanent thing, and that CUPs are not designed for you to pick and choose on a case-by-case basis whether or not you want to allow any particular. I think you asked a question, well, are other ones going to be camouflaged or that? So remember that a CUP is not a variance. It's something which is allowed in a district once you establish that it would be a conditional use. And then you are required to grant that conditional use permit if people meet the requirements of the code. You're allowed to put reasonable conditions on that CUP, but you're required to, if they meet the intent of the code, to approve that. And again, that is a permanent, runs with the land type of entitlement. So just want to be cautious about that. And I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding about CUPs that, oh, we allow them, but only under CUP, so we get a chance to say yes or no, and that's not exactly the case. And then I think it was important to note here too, Abby, you did a nice job here. It says 2 times the tower height from any residential dwelling on another parcel. In that picture, you saw that the tower is adjacent to or a part of the structure, just noting that the parcel itself on the site that would be proposing that would be exempt from that ring around the structure. So structure on the parcel that's proposing would be allowed to be within that fall zone.
Yeah, towers can fall on anything you own. We just don't want them falling on somebody else's property.
Abby, I have a question. Is the proposed, excuse me, is the proposed amendment or proposal that you have in front of us, is that what the Planning Commission sent back to us? Or did they have other recommendations and then it was changed from what the Planning Commission said?
The only change that the Planning Commission had asked for is currently in our code is 2 times the tower height from any residential dwelling on another parcel. The Planning Commission asked that that would be a residential dwelling in their accessory structures. So essentially that they don't want it falling on somebody's outbuilding, their pole barn.
And so why did it get lowered to 1 times? Doesn't the proposed?
This is what the applicant is proposing.
Oh, that's what the applicant's proposing.
This is an existing.
Isn't that what's recommended here, though?
Correct, and the ordinance in front of you has the Planning Commission's recommendation embedded into it.
So to be clear, in the Planning Commission's recommendation that you're asking us to approve, it's 2 times?
Correct.
Okay, not 1 times.
Correct.
Okay.
Because what's in front of you still is Beal Consulting's request, but our recommendation is that we would retain what we have in our code.
Thank you for clarifying.
Abby, can you put that map back up of where those, what this would open up, the potential areas?
Sure, give me just 1 second. So right now, everything that's colored is zoned single family. The current code requires 10 plus acres, so you're looking at the purple parcels or even maybe some of the blue where you might have 2 parcels of 5 acres that are touching each other. What they would be proposing is you're falling into that orange category. Yes, I understand that some of that goes as low as 1 acre, but you do end up having considerably more parcels that are, meeting that threshold of 1 mile apart that are 2.5 acres above.
So let's say on the north side of First Lake there with all those orange, could someone seemingly put something there right in the middle on the lake in a residential area as long as it, in the.
As long as it met the minimum 2.5 acres that they were proposing. Now, currently, staff is, and the way the ordinance is written, is staff is recommending you don't change that to 2.5 acres. But as the original proposal has been made, yes, if the property is 2.5 acres and where they're siting that tower meets those setback requirements, then yes. I'd have to do a parcel by parcel analysis to see of which ones are, right at 2.5 acres. You clearly get to some of these parcels that start to get much smaller. You can't even see. I'm just like pointing my cursor and I don't think you can see it up there, so I apologize, but.
And to make it so that we're not forced into a different situation, we can't go about this with some type of variance. Let's say, since we're using the Hosanna, some type of variance to allow this. This has to be a code amendment.
Correct. The type of variance could be if you kept your 10-acre minimum, but you had a property later down the road that was 2.5 acres. You could consider a variance along with that CUP, but variances are based on practical difficulty and unique circumstances. It's not often I can't tell you, we could give some sort of the hypothetical here. It's hard for me to say that staff would say, oh yeah, we should approve a 7.5 acre variance to allow for 2.5 acre sites. I will say this, Hosanna Lutheran Church, if they come forward with an application after this, they have sufficient land area to meet the 10 acres. It's just the opportunities that could be available to other properties within the city. And it could be that in the future, with adequate coverage maps showing increased service and filling in coverage gaps, that maybe that is grounds for consideration of granting a variance, that there is uniqueness there, that this is really kind of the only place that we can do that to fill in the service gap in that specific area. I'm not trying to set anyone up for a future variance proposal, but I think that there's ways that you could consider smaller parcels in the future. Wouldn't recommend them wholesale right now.
We prefer to stick with our 10-acre minimum, is that what you're saying?
Correct. And the expansion being allowed in the single family on 10 acres, and let's see if we can't get some more coverage in the community before we drop it down so significantly.
You mentioned, so that there's a public hearing tonight, and there was something, was it a neighborhood meeting or just a
No.
public hearing at planning?
Yep, public hearing at Planning Commission. Neither of these have been noticed of this specific neighborhood. These are citywide amendments, so we notice it on our website and in the newspaper. But no, in regards to a specific ask at Hosanna, nothing has been notified in that neighborhood. Subsequently, if they want to move, if an amendment is made and they want to move forward with an application, then that neighborhood would be noticed of another hearing required for the future conditional use permit.
That was
Remember,
sort of I'm sorry, that was sort of the point of my bringing up the CUP and the nature of it is because if you make this code amendment and then someone applies for this and meets the requirements, the conditional use permit, it's not a choice, vote yes or no, but you will be required to prove that by public outcry that might come from having neighbors notified of that. Set reasonable conditions, you could say it has to be camouflaged, you could say all sorts of things, right? But in general, if the proposal meets the code, you need to.
Well, so for me in a residential thing, I think it's important that the camouflage or stealth look is an important piece of it. I don't know if any other conditions that council wants to bring up that.
No, and it seems there's plenty of 10-acre parcels that get better coverage, that they could find a way to make that happen around the lake.
I agree. I'm tending to agree with the proposal from the Planning Commission in that there are plenty of 10-acre parcels yet to search and just leaving the option for a variance if it comes to that.
That and the height issue. Crash zone stuff, things like that.
Okay. Anyone should make a motion then?
Maybe you can help us out with this
I
a
am
little bit.
pulling up my staff memo right at the moment. So I think give me just a quick second. So if the council is favorable, you'd have two actions tonight. One, approve the ordinance allowing for towers, ordinance 765, and then adopting the resolution 01122607, denying the requested changes to their zoning text amendment. Now, again, that ordinance number 765 is written for 10 acres in the single-family zoning district with an increased fall of 2.5 times any structure on a neighboring property. That is not written for only institutional uses. And so if there was an ask or if there was a desire to limit them more to just those institutional uses, so on page 134 is the motions, you could move to approve ordinance number 765, allowing towers as conditional use permits in the single-family zoning district on parcels guided for institutional use on the future land use map.
I would agree to that. I'd make a motion for that.
So moved.
Moved.
So this is on the actual ordinance, right?
Yep,
That-
correct.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion is second, and this has the, well, stealth and the camouflage, that's,
There is no stealth and camouflage in this. If that's something that this council wants to put in as a requirement in the code, what I would recommend you do is table it, direct staff to amend the ordinance to include provisions for stealth camouflaging in this zoning district and bring that ordinance back before you.
I think I'd prefer that. I mean, I really do think it's important, you know, we just had someone talk about how been looking at one for how many years, to have some kind of coverage around it, just doesn't stand out so much. It would be my preference.
Councilmember Larson withdraw his motion then?
Well, would make a redaction or
I think you would, because you've already made a motion in a second, I think you could vote and everybody deny it or else read.
I don't think there's is there a second?
There was a second. Maybe Jolene has some rubber.
Mr. Mayor, I would just suggest that Councilmember Larson move to amend his motion, and then to table the item with the direction that Abby provided, and should Councilmember Miller agree, he could second the amended motion.
okay, I make a motion to table the item for review and to add some other wording to the ordinance for 765 to include camouflaging particulars to that hours.
All right,
Councilmember Larson, can I just ask you to clarify that you're making a motion to amend your?
That's correct,
original-
amending that motion.
And I would second that.
right. Motion second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Then what happens to the resolution? Then that is tabled as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have the resolution on tonight. You want them to also table consideration then?
Let's go ahead and just table it, just so we have a clean record.
Okay. Anyone want to make that motion?
It would be a motion to table resolution 01122607.
I would make that motion to table resolution 0117 2607.
I'll
I left
second.
my glasses at home, I'm sorry.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks. Right, 8B, Spikes and Hools Phase 2 amended site plan and PUD preliminary and final plan. Abby.
This plugged in. Give me just a second. My settings decided to change on my presentation, on my computer. Give me a minute. I'm plugged in, right? Yeah. Second. They just changed the display settings. My computer decided to change mid-screen and then I couldn't. And so I just gotta tell the computer to keep the changes I just made. Monday, right? There we go. Thank you, Mayor Roberts, members of the council for your patience there. So as I indicated, Spikes and Hools is tonight with you for their Phase 2 preliminary and final planned unit development and site plan review consideration. Tonight before you is consideration of their final, preliminary and final planned unit development. Essentially, Spikes and Hools is proposing to build out the rest of their site with an independent greenhouse, outside nursery yard, parking and drive areas, and stormwater. This really will help urbanize the site that has been historically underdeveloped since it was probably first developed. So just giving you a high level, this is the site plan. I'm gonna get my pointer here. Hopefully you can kind of see. You can't. So this is the existing Spike and Hools facility as it sits today. There's an existing building just to the south of the remodeled elevator site, the expansion, and the old, I think it was called the Pickle Building. What they're predominantly looking to do is put in just over 6,000 square foot greenhouse. This is the existing structure that's on the site that will be stay in place, and a small building will be relocated right here. And then in addition, there'll be a large nursery yard in to the east. I said earlier, my directions are a little off, just to the east of the proposed greenhouse. The primary ways into the site would be continuing off of Broadway, where you could go up into the existing building, keep heading due south with angled parking on both sides. You could head to a parking lot that would access to 3rd Street Southwest, where we would kind of have a right in, right out only turn. Also, there would be parking and drive access off of 3rd Street Southwest that would have another parking lot in the back. There's a significantly sized storm pond in the rear of the property. And there would also just be a lot of at-grade landscaping, green space in the back. One thing worth noting is that much of the area in the back of the property, on the south of the property, isn't being proposed to be changed at this time. I can get into it a little bit more, but this is an area that has some challenges and has some future development opportunity. So looking at the land use analysis, this is located in the downtown mixed-use district, which retail sales and service are allowed. And then it's just an expansion of the ancillary uses that have been on the site for as long as I think most of people could probably remember. Parking on the site, 88 stalls are required and 51 stalls were proposed. As part of the Planning Commission's review, the Planning Commission did require that the developer provide what's called a proof of parking plan. There's quite a bit of discussion at the Planning Commission about parking on this site and how at times it's been known to be challenging, and how they can understand that it's quite likely the site does not need 88 parking spaces all the time, but where could we get 88 parking spaces if there was a problem in the long run? I'll show that in just a minute. Additionally, additional landscaping has been recommended, and then lighting and signage has been discussed. So here is the preliminary landscape plan, which shows landscaping around the storm pond and in some of the parking lot islands and along the buffers of the property. Generally speaking, the Planning Commission thought the applicant could install more landscaping, and at this time, the developer has said, and landowner has said, they certainly can and certainly will, required as a condition of approval at the time of building permit, an enhanced landscaping plan. A couple things worth noting, enhancing landscaping around the storm pond, just to kind of prevent access or any sort of slip and fall circumstances, was identified. And then also removing some of the landscaping in this back portion area where there's a existing city water line, as well as that area where we'd be looking at some future redevelopment. The area in future redevelopment, so I've switched my view. North is now up at the top. It's a little easier sometimes. Off of 2nd Avenue Southwest, there's kind of this historic gravel path that I think folks in the community are aware of. The yellow parcel is the only parcel Spikes and Hools owns through here. We do have platted right-of-way associated with 2nd Street Southwest through here. And then the city owns this third parcel. This is a private, it is a parcel, it's a tax parcel. The really interesting thing is 207 2nd Avenue Southwest accesses their property and their garage off of this undeveloped land area. Additionally, staff has seen a preliminary development plan, though we provided some, I would say, not favorable feedback to it, for the potential redevelopment of 207 with some townhome sites. Staff is concerned that if we're asking Spikes and Hools to expand and improve all of the area through here right now, we're just maybe not quite there. Additionally, I think with the potential redevelopment of 207 2nd Avenue Southwest, that we would run the risk of putting in improvements that might need to be torn up in the future if there's some sort of development in this. Additionally, we've been talking for some time about the opportunity that this intersection with the Browns Creek State Trail, not Browns Creek State Trail, Hardwood Creek. It's only been 4 years, I'm not sure where that came from. The Hardwood Creek Trail connection at 2nd Avenue Southwest, and how this site right in here could serve as a really nice trailhead access point onto the Hardwood Creek Trail. Developer understands that that's something that the city wants to continue conversations of the redevelopment of this, and to help keep their phased project going, staff wanted to encourage them to keep moving forward with this PUD, exempting this portion of it from improvement. The developer has shown, remember how I told you that proof of parking would be required? The developer has shown how they can achieve all parking on site, including putting parking exactly where we've just talked about the potential of a future trailhead. So as of right now, we're not asking that any of the yellow, red dotted parking be installed, but this is designed to essentially show us how they could put in their additional parking on their site should parking become a problem or a nuisance in the future. So PUD criteria, what we're looking for is whether or not it's consistent with the comp plan, zoning code, subdivision code, compatibility with the surrounding area, that we're not going to negatively impact health, safety, general welfare, all of those good things. One of the things worth noting is that the developer really isn't asking for PUD concessions aside from that potential proof of parking, which isn't uncommon in zoning. We're requiring the PUD because they have multiple buildings on one side. So included in your packet for your consideration, it would be many different conditions of approval. Some of them just worthy of noting is that we would require the developer to combine parcels, that this will become one development site. You can't kind of split this up and parcel it off in the future. We'd make some corrections to the final plans, including comments from the city engineer, and that we remove the private property signs at 2nd Street Southwest. We also would require site improvements, stormwater maintenance, and easement agreements to be executed before building permit submittal, and an updated landscaping plan for those parking and stormwater areas. And then additionally, an updated lighting plan. They do have a lighting plan included, but it was just concern of the cutoff at all property lines adjacent to the residential. And then included are those future parking improvements if needed. So tonight before you is your consideration of the Phase 2 planned unit development and then their proposed site plan. I did mess up in that I neglected to include the ordinance, which makes the planned unit development official. I included the resolution summarizing the ordinance. So I know that I'll have to bring documents back before you, but what I would ask that you would do is approve Resolution 01122609 for the site plan review, and then move to approve the PUD, the resolution, and then direct staff to bring back that PUD ordinance and summary of the resolution at your next meeting. Landowner is here to talk about this if you have questions. This isn't a public hearing. You don't have to have conversations with them, but they're here if you have questions of them or me.
Questions, council thoughts?
Abby, do we know the size of the building they're proposing for the greenhouse?
Yeah, it's just, I think if I remember correctly, just around 6,000 square feet.
So 30 by,
Oh, I could look that up. I think it's 30 by, it looks like just under 200.
is that that's a solid structure, not a tent greenhouse, right?
Correct.
That's
This is going to be a permanent structure, not like the framed structures that are on site now. This would replace all of the temporary structures that are on site that they've been utilizing.
based on our zoning that would fit into that area?
A greenhouse, I don't believe that there's anything in conflict with the code. Staff had looked at this from the aspect that this was a use that had been historically on the property, that they are, yes, it was seasonal, but that they're just legitimizing it with a permanent structure. I can double check the code. I would hope that we wouldn't have gotten this far, that there's some sort of conflict with the code. I will say that this was a project that started before I had come here, and so we've gone through a number of different planners. I don't believe that there are conflicts, but I can look.
What is the zoning there again?
The downtown mixed use.
Mixed use?
So in full transparency, I want to state that the Gertens family has been a large supplier of ours over the years, and now up until the last couple of years, a competitor. So I will be abstaining from either one of these, both these votes here tonight, but I do have just some things that maybe council might want to discuss. The parking situation, I mean, we're 31, there are 37 spots short of what code is. That seems like a pretty big ask. Also in that, I don't see any loading area down in Inver Grove Heights. I think there's about 6 or 7, maybe 8 spots for loading, and I don't see any loading spots on there. So you would likely have to lose some of those spots just for that, because that's just the nature of that business. And if we are going to be okay with the parking situation, the proof of parking for the additional spaces, Are we talking about if we're gonna require that at some point, would that just be gravel, or are we gonna, would that be paved? Would that be a requirement?
If in the future it has to be put in, it would be paved, and we would embed that into that site improvement agreement that would come back before you.
That's all I have. Does anyone have any questions of developers? Would you like to add anything this evening at all? State your name and address.
Good evening, Gino Patera with Spikes and Hools. So we've been working on this project for several years with the city, and I think we've made nice progress with the upgrades to the old Hools buildings and try to preserve the heritage of the site. The greenhouse would be a glass greenhouse, so it would be a nice structure. I think would be a nice addition to that corner and a way to kind of finish what's there without it being out of character for what the rest of the site looks like. As for the parking, some cities require some of the outside space to be included in the parking calculations. Some do not in different places that we have facilities at. So if the ask is to have the paved parking that is shown, and if the city feels at a future date that the site is overwhelmed, then we would be happy to add the parking. As a business owner, the last thing that we want is not to have adequate parking for customers. So that pushes the equation the wrong way. Parking places pushes the equation the correct way. Someone mentioned loading, Mayor Roberts. We do have some loading points now with the feed operation. We feel that with the parking being adjacent to the nursery areas, that there wouldn't be a need to have like a nursery pickup station. And so we have like a drive through to the south from the north, and we would anticipate that things like mulches and feed would still continue to be loaded in that way, and we think that would be adequate to service customers without causing a rigmarole or a traffic jam that would be a problem for any of the traffic on any of the adjacent streets. And if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
A couple questions. You mentioned loading, unloading. I know the mayor brought it up. So currently, where do you load and unload your products now?
I'll break that in my answer into two parts. If it's inbound freight, it's on the second.
Yeah, just give me just a second. I unplugged and I have to now change my display settings.
Let's call it the old shed that runs east-west. There's two loading dock stations there that freight comes in.
And is that on the south side, you're saying, of the building?
The south side of the building.
So you back up to the south side?
Yes.
Okay, so if you were to put parking in where the red dots are, how would you access that loading and unloading? Would there still be room?
I was referring to the other shed across from the bank.
Oh, the smaller shed
It's
on the
it would
west
be
side.
the southwest corner of the site.
I know.
Is it the small shed or?
No, it's the larger shed.
That's a shed currently, that big building there? Okay, so currently, they back up to where the parking lot is proposed. That's where you back up to load and unload?
No, Abby, could you help me out? Just to the west of that dot, if you were to, you went east,
So east of the dot, okay, so
No,
west
no.
of the dot. So on the
Come
road
to
on
the
Third
west.
Street, you're saying?
There's
This
a,
is north.
yep,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Everybody, this is north.
so
I'm
go
sorry.
down
East.
Third Street,
Yeah, east, west.
come over to Third Street.
Yep.
All right, if you go south, right there, there's two loading docks.
So
That,
how do you get in there right now?
nope,
You pull in off of Third Street and drive up where those arrows are and back up?
correct.
And is that a curb all the way across there, or is that no curb in there?
No, that's straight, it's a straight shot.
And is Third Street paved or unpaved, Abby? I can't remember.
Third Street's
It's
paved.
paved, okay. And how big of trucks are you pulling in there?
Full-size semis.
Okay. And so if you build your yard and your greenhouse, and people are buying merchandise and trees or whatever, what types of items are you gonna have in the greenhouse and in the nursery yard?
So in the greenhouse, it would be things like hanging baskets, tomato plants, vegetable plants, geraniums, flowers, that type of thing. In the yard, it would be perennials, shrubs, trees. And currently, we receive approximately 3 semi-load deliveries a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that would probably, double or triple. But even at, say, triple the volume that we would do, it's not a tangled truck mess that I would worry about, how do we get our merchandise? Did we leave enough dock space?
What are the biggest trees that you carry?
They would probably be, let's call them a 25-gallon pot. So that pot would probably be 24-inch in diameter, 1 inch.
And are you delivering those trees, or are most customers taking them with them?
Here, it's all pickup.
Okay, so where would a customer then, how would they get loaded? If
We
they,
would probably just bring it to their car,
with a,
two-wheel dolly.
okay,
We
see.
call it a tree cart.
okay. Okay. Thank you.
Questions? That's it for now. We might ask you up in a second if we have other questions, but thanks, Gino.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other thoughts, questions?
I obviously have concerns with parking. I mean, it seems like every project we do, every apartment we do, everything we do, even looking at, new stuff coming to us, there's always a shortage of parking. And I know that's, not an easy thing to accomplish. I agree that you may not need all the parking spots that are required. And there is room if they need to add more. It's just a question of, do you approve something? If you need more, we'll add it, or do you make them put it in right up front? Or do
I
we,
mean, the code does allow for when you do have a site with multiple uses or multiple structures to allow for that proof of parking, to add in parking later.
it does apply to add
It
it later?
does, yeah.
What triggers that? What would be the proof that there's an issue? Like complaints, or how did?
Yeah, I mean, we'd be looking at complaints. We're good, I've talked about this with legal counsel of building it into the site improvement agreement. There'd have to be some triggers or mechanisms. Generally, what we're gonna end up finding is if there's gonna be complaints of some sort of public nuisance, right? And thus far, in their operations, we haven't heard about them. We did hear about them some at the Planning Commission when they had a couple special events. But we are also hopeful that designating the parking on site is gonna drastically improve any sort of existing parking conditions that are being problematic right now, because right now there's no rhyme or reason really to the parking there.
And would that be striped parking?
Right now, everything you see in kind of that light gray,
Yep.
all of this is improved asphalted striped parking.
Abby, you had talked about the road that comes in currently from the south, that part of, to the west of that, the city owns some property. We have a homeowner that's using access off of our city property. And then you've got the yellow line there, which Hools owns. Would that be part of something in the future if we decided to, as a city, allow 207 to be developed? Would that piece be part of that, or is that always going to remain separate?
That is all up for redevelopment negotiation if 207 redevelops.
Right.
So the yellow piece is Hools, and that
Correct.
is theirs. That is where they are showing the
Correct, but if-
potential for future
Right.
parking.
But then we wouldn't be able to necessarily include that any redevelopment. It would eliminate parking potentially then.
We can't include the yellow in any future redevelopment of 207 because we don't own the yellow.
Right, but I guess my question is, could Hools decide to sell that as part of that redevelopment? Let's say the developer wanted to acquire that piece of land from them with those other two parcels in order to develop that and separate it off of their current property. Would that be allowed?
Sure. One of the conditions of approval is that they do combine all the parcels on their property. So that can include this parcel. So this little leg could be a part of the entire site. Also, we own this as a parcel. So if we started to talk about, you know, some sort of redevelopment of 207 and the potential sale of this, first person we're calling is Gino as part of this. I will say that landowner has been, you know, we've been discussing this in good faith that we're not doing this here now because we don't know what that future down there is. And I think for all parties involved, want to be able to maximize the development opportunities and achieve everyone's goals. I think the easiest way to solve the concern that I'm hearing you say is just having that combined with the rest of the property so that they retain the ownership at least until such time as we have another conversation about whether or not it needs to be split in the future.
Thank you.
If 207 was redeveloped, that would, whatever development there, that same policy development pays for that to to improve that street?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the time if 207 came in. So what we've seen thus far is a potential townhome project that the driveways access or off of that 202nd. That would be a time that we'd be looking for them to improve that as part of that redevelopment project. Thus far, of what's going to happen with that, I don't know. And what we saw, at least initially, I would say I wasn't optimistic that it would achieve some of our development standards, but we might see something come in still.
Dave, is that graded on a regular basis and maintained? Because I just, we're going to be driving a lot more traffic and a lot of people are going to use that way to get into the site. I know in the spring of the year when the frost is coming out, those roads are typically just an absolute mess.
It's kind of a catch-22. Some people want to maintain and then others don't want to maintain, use it as.
And I know the people at gravel road that we all, and then when we get
Interested in making a motion? You're saying you do have to come back, Abby, do have to come back on.
Yeah, I do think you can take action tonight and then just direct me to bring back the documents memorializing your actions. So at if the council is favorable, we move to approve the PUD and as proposed and presented, including resolution 01-122609, Spike and Hool site plan review, and direct staff to bring back the PUD ordinance and summary resolution.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve the Spikes and Hools Phase 2 planned unit development and proposed and presented, as proposed and presented, including resolution 01-122609, Spikes and Hools site plan review, and direct staff to bring back the planned unit development ordinance and summary resolution.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One abstention. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for your investment, Forest Lake. All right, 8C, Minnesota, or MnDOT Aviation Grant Awards, and Mark is going to kick this off.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, we have Silas here, our airport consultant as well, to answer any questions you may have. But we have some good news and bad news, and the good news is that we were awarded grants through MnDOT for all three of our capital improvement projects that have been proposed over the last couple of years here. The bad news is that the funding formula changed kind of midstream and went from a 95% participation from MnDOT to a 90% funding level. And that meant that the city's share of these proposed projects went up. We had, sort of budgeted for the 5% match, and so now we have a 10% match to try to come up with. So you see on the first page of the memo here that the local match now is around $177,640. I say around that because that's in the end, the grant numbers will be a little different as we bid out that apron expansion. As you can see, those are kind of round numbers at this point, but as we do that, design that project and bid it out, those numbers will float a little bit. And then on the second page of the memo, we kind of just get into where this money might come from and whether or not it should be borne by the airport itself. And as I mentioned, that's a complicated question and sort of one of philosophical, how does the city approach its airport? I think in the past, we have attempted to have the airport land leases support capital projects. It's been met with some resistance from hangar owners, and I think this set of projects is similar to that, our previous experience there, in that the hangar owners, while I'm certain they would like to have this improvement done, they may resist paying for it. So I think the approach tonight is to evaluate the city's position here based on whether or not this investment into our airport is good for the city as a whole, with the cost being borne by the city and not necessarily by the hangar owners. The airport itself, as you can see, is functionally a break-even investment at this point in time. That does include an analysis that includes counting the property taxes in that equation that the airport produces. Certainly that's not the way we look at it in on the accounting books. The property taxes go in with all the rest of the property taxes. And so, you don't have to view it that way. I just thought for illustrative purposes that it would be good to show that and show that there is that contribution to our bottom line. So again, the operations of the airport as they currently stand are pretty self-sufficient. The tough part comes when we have capital expenses and how do we do that? So it's staff's suggestion at that point, and it was the airport's commission to recommend acceptance of the MnDOT grants. And so their motion was fairly simple in that was all their motion had to say about it, was just that they recommend accepting the grants. The investment in this airport is certainly a benefit to the hangar owners, but also it's an investment in our own infrastructure. And again, the reminder that the hangar owners don't own that land that their hangars are on, they're renting that, or leasing it from us. And so their benefit is of a limited scope and time. And so that, asking them to invest in permanent infrastructure is a bit tricky as well, unlike some of our, our street projects where we might ask a homeowner to pay an assessment. And so tonight, in front of you, I have a revised document that I want to just look at, which is that the last part of my memo has a recommendation as normal, and that recommendation I just neglected to include some dollar amounts in there and a little bit more of a breakout. So the highlighted and red text there that you see shows that we would be recommending award of the contract for the construction of the runway and taxiway project to Forest Lake Contract in the amount of $987,006. And additionally, we would be asking that you award the engineering contracts to Bolton and Mink for a total of $250,000. And so everyone can kind of follow the math here. This doesn't change any of the city participation. The numbers that you saw in the memo, this is still the same overall project cost. You'll notice that 987 and 250 does not add up to that total grant amount of 159, and that's because we don't yet know the construction costs of the apron expansion that would come later. So that, again, depends on the bids. But in order to move forward with the acceptance of the grants, we do have to have the contracts with Bolton and Mink in place. And I don't know, Silas, if you want to speak to that at all, just MnDOT's process there.
Yeah, certainly, Administrator Stotts, members of council, thank you for the time here. So the way every state-funded project at the airport works is that the city of Forest Lake needs to encumber the funds from the state of Minnesota, have a grant agreement in place before any work can be done and reimbursed. The reason for that being is MnDOT does not want any work being done before encumbrance so that they can ensure the work is done and approved by their staff. So for this particular project, as Administrator Stotts is reporting, the next step here is council approval to move forward with the projects and then submit the request to the state for the grant funds, as nothing can move forward until those grant funds are in place.
And so just to be clear, there's two contracts there for Bolton and Mink that are being proposed. The one is for the taxiway and runway extension. That contract was bid out already, and so we were through the design and bidding process. Those funds were handled in a separate grant. The proposal that you see in front of you for Bolton and Mink in that regard is to administer the construction of the project in terms of inspection, staking, documenting, and record plan work. And then the other contract is for the design and through construction of the apron project. And again, that's that project proposal is for the entirety of the process of engineering from design through construction. So those are the two contracts that you have in front of you there. And then there's a letter of award recommendation for the construction project itself that Bolton and Mink evaluated the bids that we took on the taxiway and runway extension and found that Forest Lake to be the lowest responsive bidder. And that's the one with the little table in the front here that has them at $987,000 as the low bidder. So with that, I would take any questions about anything from the bidding of the project to the construction or to the funding of it. So.
Administrator Stotts, I'm confused on just some of the numbers.
Sure.
Can you go back to the actual cost of the runway? Where is that number?
Sure. So on the first page of the memo, the runway extension. Yeah, this is in your packet.
Oh,
so,
sorry.
I don't have the electronic copy in front of me.
All right, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. That one is 177. 177 or so. There's the grant summary there is, you have the apron expansion, taxiway extension, and runway extension. And so the total cost of the taxiway and runway extension, there are two different projects there, but really it would be silly to do one without the other. Most likely, I think you, I suppose, could, but so you see there's a $304,000. If you look at the grant amount, that would be really the project cost would be $338 for the taxiway and $1.1 million for the runway extension. And so you're in the neighborhood of $1.4 million or so there. And then, so that project essentially cost about $1.4 million. And of that, the city would have to come up with 10% of that.
So we're looking at coming up with $177,640, and we budgeted how much?
Half of that.
The apron, that was something that wasn't originally in our budget, is that correct?
No, it was. All three of these projects were in the capital improvement plan. Yep.
Okay. Like an awful lot of money for a concrete slab, yeah. Question for you, maybe Silas, you could answer this. The taxiway, looks like the one that's in the middle, A2 is it? That runs right in the middle, that's currently there before the extension? Is that A2? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I believe you're talking about Alpha 3, Councilmember Miller.
Yes, the one that's right in the middle.
Taxiway A3.
A3, yeah. Is that planned on gonna leave that there, or does that have to stay there, or can that be removed?
That taxiway connector would remain.
That would remain, and then you'll add the other taxiway on the end when you extend the runway, and then the other taxiway on the north side stays as well.
That is correct, Councilmember.
What would be the reason for adding the enlarged apron?
So MnDOT had so previously, as you see from that aerial photo, there's 6 of those Ts. So those Ts are tie-down spots for aircraft that are visiting the airport, or if any one of the hangar tenants there is, doing some maintenance and needs to move an aircraft out. So that apron expansion project was just completed 3 years ago. Previously, it was just aircraft parking and grass areas there. So MnDOT state statutes for airports require at a minimum 3 spaces on a paved surface for any aircraft, visiting an airport. So that project was completed at the recommendation of MnDOT, which is also a grant-funded project. But the reason why there was 6 spots included instead of just the minimum 3 is because of the amount of aircraft activity that occurs at Forest Lake Airport. It is one of the busier general aviation airports in the region, primarily for the number of based aircraft that are operating here, and then also folks that don't want to deal with the MAC and going to Anoka County. You do get a lot of transient aircraft that come here to also fuel up, because fuel pricing here is much more reasonable than some neighboring airports. And after we constructed that project, it was also identified that it would be nice to complete the complete apron expansion, to add the remaining 200 feet, just because the amount of aircraft activity here and the amount of parking that's required.
So would those be anchored spots again, like the other 6?
Yes, sir.
So when I was out at the airport not too long ago, getting a little tour and being shown around by a couple of the hangar owners, I noticed there were a number of vehicles parked out in that area that don't move. That's something that's allowed in those spots, or is it just supposed to be for airplanes?
Those spots are supposed to be for aircraft parking only.
And so this new paved area would be for aircraft only as well?
Yes, sir.
So some of the vehicles that I see parked out there currently, what would happen with those?
So from my knowledge of those, I believe there's like a fuel tanker and a different type of vehicle that are out there. They previously were not stored in that area. They were stored behind hangar number 1. So I think it's just a discussion that the city needs to have with the owners of those vehicles, just to move them off of those parking spots.
And as a city, we maintain those runways, and we would maintain the plowing out there, or is that a cost of the airport?
Yes, the city maintains the airport for snow plowing, snow removal, lawn mowing. Administrator Stotts does have a breakdown. The city does receive some grant funding from MnDOT for what's called a maintenance and operations agreement to help ease the financial burden of maintaining the airport. I believe it's about $19,000 a year that Forest Lake receives for maintenance and operations funds.
The fuel that's out there, I know that basically, and I've heard this, that actually people in the public drive in there and actually get fuel out of that fuel pump for their vehicles.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. It's an unleaded fuel. So if you have a snowmobile, small engines, a camper even, it's a nicer fuel to put in than some of the leaded fuels that you'd get at your regular gas station. So you do see that pretty common at a number of airports.
So it's pretty common that happens. It's something that is relied upon. I mean, it seems like a security issue of some sort.
It's a publicly available airport. It's a publicly owned fuel system. So whether it's not necessarily, yes, the fuel there is for aircraft, but it doesn't restrict anybody from coming in there and fueling up their vehicle, camper, boat, RV, small engines, what have you, council member. There's no restrictions on who can come in and take on fuel.
But Okay, I understand that, but the driving around out there, down these taxiways and along the side, is that really supposed to be for the public? Because that's what we hear is happening. They're not pulling up behind here in the dirt road behind the building. They're pulling up and coming down the taxiway and pulling right into those pumps. Is that what that's for, or is that not supposed to be just for pilots?
So that is a future project to kind of address some access to getting to the apron area and the fuel system. Currently, as it sits right now, you are correct, council member, is, members of the public have to drive through the taxi lanes which are designated for kind of the aircraft owners and tenants there. So there has been, over the years, I've heard some concerns about the public, just driving through there. But right now, there's no other way to access the fuel. If you are bringing a vehicle or something of that nature,
Does our
Councilmember.
city have liability for that?
There are signs that are posted out there that say, restricted access, but I can't speak to what the city's insurance policy, covers for the airport.
Yeah, we're certainly insured, for activity at the airport.
Can I just kind of add on that a little bit? Is that through this, we started a process of guidelines out there, is that something that can be addressed in those guidelines if there's a concern? Because I guess I didn't realize that vehicles are using that pump for
Yeah.
vehicular
It's not all that common. I mean, we don't go through that much fuel. I have recently, just in the last month, gotten a couple calls with people who are racing snowmobiles. I mean, at 4 something a gallon, it's not something people are gonna go out of their way to come get unless it's sort of high performance type of engines and that kind of thing. But I'm sure it does happen, and as you mentioned, it is something we're looking at, is trying to get better access to where there's the road that you come in on, and if you stay right the whole time, you never get on a taxiway, then you can approach the backside of the fuel tanks there. And so with a few modifications to that driveway system there, I think we could get access to the fuel tanks without having people access the taxiway. And that's certainly something that should be addressed in the near future.
Questions? Thoughts? So just a little bit on the funding here. Over the years, we've been told that this airport is self-sufficient, self-funding, and when myself and Councilmember Erickson got onto the council, we started asking some of these questions similar to what you're doing, Councilmember Miller, which makes a lot of sense, because a lot of it doesn't make some sense. And so what we found was there a lot of staff time that wasn't being accounted towards the airport fund. Legal wasn't. Our airport manager, who was the assistant city administrator, his time wasn't being accounted to it. So we started doing that, and that's why we've ended up from I think at one point a $200,000 surplus to $19, which that's fine, and I'm fine with that. It's about transparency, and that when the public does come to us and say our taxpayers paying for this, we can certainly tell them, yes, you're clearly subsidizing this airport. I don't like the idea of calling out or denoting property taxes going to that. That's a slippery slope. I understand why it was done, but all of a sudden, if you start doing that, then the weed harvesting program, people that are on the lake are gonna want more put towards that based on their property taxes out on the lake or whatever area of the town that a project's gonna happen. So I'm not comfortable with that. And I'm fine on this project here moving forward and using city general fund dollars. I would like to have that memorialized so that when this, and hopefully with additional sales of hangar or leases of hangars lots, fuel sales, which I understand has increased, we've gotten more competitive and we're watching that and adjusting the price to be what market price is in the area, that we can get this fund solvent and that which actually can pay some of this back. So I would like to have that memorialized somehow that at some point, I don't know if there's an option that it could be paid back. I don't know what triggers that or what is, but at least that it's memorialized somewhere. And with this, I really, it would be my wish that we don't go forward with any more grant requests, that we don't ask MnDOT for any more grants until we get this account in a better financial situation. Because that's this easy slippery slope. It's like, my gosh, for 1.4 or whatever, we only have 177 into it. Why wouldn't we do this? And that ends up, next thing you know, it's another 177, and that's 200. So I really think that we need to put a pause on grant requests to MnDOT Avionics until we get this funding figured out.
Do our current leases give us any opportunity for any type of an assessment where it's a shared cost with the hangar owners in addition to the city?
Councilmember Miller, I think that's a question for our attorney that I'm not going to put her on the spot to answer right now, but I'll just say that it's not 100% clear. Certainly, there are a couple different leases, and so there's a little bit different language in each one. But in general, staff believes that both hangar rent rates and assessments are options, but it gets a little bit hairier, and I'll not speak beyond that without our attorney maybe weighing in. I think what the general thought is that to avoid that issue, it's best if the city just decides whether or not you want to use the mayor's word, subsidize the airport. And I think that is a fundamental question that we're asking here. And as you mentioned, without those property taxes, another way of saying that in this graph here would be that the city is subsidizing it by $15,000, the operations, right? I think hangar owners might argue that we subsidize playgrounds and we subsidize lots of other things in town that don't make money. And so there is that counter argument. I think to speak to the mayor's question about memorializing this and could this pay back, one of the things I think you could say with your motion here just is that in the event that the airport operates at a profit, we'll call it, that those monies did not necessarily mean that those will be reinvested into the airport. If we sell enough fuel and have enough hangar rent that is raised at the typical levels, those excess funds go to the city's coffers, and we hope someday that the airport is more self-sufficient than it is today, and that we're not going to necessarily reinvest those monies into the airport.
Councilmember Miller, if I can add, so at the last Airport Commission meeting, some of those ideas were brought in to help pay for this, and even from our chair, legal action was basically threatened if we even considered that. So I think that would be a challenge, and I'd rather not go that route. I think we can, again, with additional leases and fuel sales and some other things, we can make up this money.
Is it likely that, looking at other airports in the surrounding area, that they're self-sustaining?
I think most airports are about where we're at, right? Where they're about a break-even proposition. I don't think a lot of them cash flow enough to be more than self-sustaining, like a profit center. I do think that we're in a good spot here where we've got, with this project, we would have a pretty robust set of infrastructure, not much left to do. Silas, would you say there's not a lot of, the next set of projects are maybe a little bit to service the backside of those commercial lots that we have put out there? Other than that, we've got a pretty nice looking airport here with this project in tow.
Yeah, to kind of add on to answer Councilmember Valento's question. So with Bolton and Mank, in the state of Minnesota, I work with 31 airports. Forest Lake is the only one that even comes close to cash flowing. Every other airport is subsidized by city council for improvements, and that's primarily due to less amount of hangars that are there that are land leased and from the city and rented out by private hangar owners. So Forest Lake is from just the airports that Bolton Mank supports, is the only one that comes this close to actually cash flowing with the land leases, the fuel sales, and things like that. And that's primarily due to just the interest and activity that there is at Forest Lake. We did some analysis during the master plan project to identify how much more activity occurred at the airport after council made the decision to pave the runway and pave the parallel taxiway. I mean, don't quote me exactly, but I think there were 11 aircraft storage hangars in 2018, and now I think there's 31. So there's a significant amount of interest in the airport that has grown just over the last, 7-8 years.
And to piggyback on that, we do have a list of at least a dozen people who have some level of interest in either renting hangar space or constructing their own hangar as soon as we can make that accommodation.
Silas, would you mentioned some of the benefits to, mainly the expansion of the runway, safety things, noise, that kind of, can you speak to that a little bit, just for the public's knowledge?
Yeah, certainly. So when runway 1331 was a paved runway, it was 2,700 feet in length. So with that, there are some limitations to the number of aircraft, the size of the aircraft, and then particularly the weight of the aircrafts that can operate at the airport. And as interest in the community of Forest Lake is growing, interest at the airport is growing, there are certain businesses and also some pilots that want to base at Forest Lake, but they do require a little bit longer of a runway just for the safe operation of their aircraft and the people that they're loading. But unfortunately, the airport is also kind of landlocked. You got Fenway Boulevard on the north, you got 61 kind of on the south. So this project would extend the runway out from 2,700 feet to 3,000 feet, and that is very likely going to be it for sure my lifetime, unless there's hundreds of millions kind of poured into the community. But getting to that 3,000 feet is kind of a big number in the aviation community, primarily for insurance. Insurance kind of runs in, 1,000-foot chunks. So there are certain, business aircraft that their insurance will not allow them to land at the airport with the runway length of less than 3,000 feet. So getting to 3,000 is a nice number for business pilots, but also just for the members of the airport there that are based right now. It's going to increase their safety and operation of operating at the airport, and then also for others that do come here. So after this runway extension, if council does elect to move forward, there's not going to be, another runway extension or associated parallel taxiway extension at the airport.
My understanding is that longer runway, they don't have to power up as much, and it's mitigates sound as well for the neighboring homes?
Yeah, there has been, some noise complaints, particularly for residents that live off of Clear Lake. And with the way the runway extension is set up now, pilots, if they're taken off to the north, they'll be, recessed 300 feet further back. So they will conceivably be in the sky quicker and then elevating higher, if they are taken off over to the north. So I can't confirm for sure there'll be, less noise complaints, but there will be some, residents that do notice a difference.
Taking a motion.
More than one motion here?
It's a bit of an extended motion there on the revised one, but you can break it into several motions, but I think probably unless you were of a mind to do one project but not the other, I would suggest just the one motion that I've got recommended here.
I'll make a motion to accept all three grants from MnDOT totaling $1,598,761, award the contract for the construction of the taxiway and runway project to Forest Lake Contracting for $987,600, award the engineering contracts to BMI for $250,000, and fund the projects through the city's capital improvement fund, in parentheses, street fund.
Motion, is there a second? If I can mention some on the, the capital improvement fund, street fund, is it have to be specific to that one, Mark, or is it, and it doesn't mean we're gonna do less roads, it is gonna take that, those dollars from that street fund, is that what, was there,
Yeah, I mean, that's staff suggestion would be to take it from that fund. You could take it from any of your capital funds, simply spend it out of the general fund levy, and your total general fund balance. We would suggest taking it out of the capital funds because they're set up to do this type of thing, capital improvements. It does just reduce that amount in there. It doesn't necessarily mean we do fewer streets next year. It just means there's a little less money available in there to do those projects. It's something we adjust each and every year as we get the bids in for the street project and move things around a little bit.
I'll second.
motion second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Silas. All right, I have lost the agenda here, but I think the next item is Dave in street signs, or,
Yep, saving the best for last, like usual.
here it is.
2016, we started our replacement policy for street sign blades. Those are well, actually, all the street signs throughout the city. It was amazing. Some of them were still made out of plywood and with embossed lettering and spray paint. So it was an adventure going through the entire 6-mile city, replacing them. What we were gonna do is we do them every 10 years now, so 2026 will be the start of the next round of replacing all the street signs, street blades, stop signs, all that. And have a sequence how we went through the last time, we'll kind of repeat that again over the next 10 years. It was brought up a couple years ago of putting logos on the street signs. You see that around, other municipalities have put on their logo on city street blades. And at that point I said, let's just hold off, let's get through the city one time because we had all different sizes, we weren't up to code. So we're up to that point now, so that's why I brought that back. Typically order and in February, get them delivered, and then seasonal times we'll put them up throughout the summer months. I attached 5 options of logos. I also brought a poster board so you can see them in real life too, and provide somewhat of a vision test to see how far away I can get before you can read the signs. But it makes a lot of difference looking them on a piece of paper like in here than looking them on actual street sign from a distance. So that's kind of why just the color part is you'll see when I put these up that sometimes the color looks really nice on here, but once you put them up. But I will take a second, I'll put them up. But really want tonight discussion if number one, we want logos at all on the street signs, and if we do, then I'm looking for direction on which one of the 5 that council will support or direct us to start ordering with that, and that would be our template that even city engineer would have as well for upcoming developments, that those would be put on those. Give me a moment, I'll just prep them up.
Let Vanna White do it over there. He's got it all.
Be my retirement job.
Dave, if you stay here long enough, we'll name a street after you. if that's okay.
I was gonna add memorial at the end of it.
Any thoughts?
So the one thought I have, or one for Public Works recommendation, imagine one of these saying Ivywood after the logo. So your sign is gonna be way out there. And the number one concern when we put signs up is they become sales. I have, one of my Public Works guys actually has a video of them just spinning in a circle with that last word. So the smaller we can get them, so these logos, because you stretched them up, it might be stacked to Forest Lake. You got rid of the as bit of it sounds. You're gaining 6 inches per sign, which reduce every sign 6 inches. Overall cost, it doesn't cost any more whether you have a color logo, a white on green logo. It's per sign you'd be spending extra per street plate, just because of the sign, because you used to print out multiple colors, and there'd be a bunch of layers that you pay twice, once longer for the sign and then also the colors, but now it's all digitally printed.
Some of the public works departments that we looked at a while back, they had way to manufacture their own signs. We don't do that. We order all of our signs.
Everything from a stop sign up to a street plate.
And to add logos, would you say how much more would it be on average? Or if there's, you must have an idea to replace all of our street signs and add a logo versus just replacing the street signs. How much more is it?
It's $10 a street plate, so multiply, there's probably between 500 and 1,000. So $5,000 to $10,000 over 10 years. Roughly $500 to $1,000 a year added. We can't go back and add logos on the ones we have because there's not that room. But in the future, if the city were to ever do a logo change and do a new logo, you'd be able to come back and then re-sticker all the logos if it's within that 8-year process that we could add it into it. A number of cities have done that too, because they've gone through a logo change in between.
So the recommendation from Public Works is the shorter, so like number 2 or 3 if you're going down?
Yeah, it's all up to preference. I think you can see the white on white a lot better, the top one and the middle one. If you like the color, then I would try to lean you towards this one where the logo is shrunk up a little bit just to gain us that size. The 6 inches is a lot. Like I said, if you put Ivywood out there, you're putting, these are 48-inch street plates. The top one on these 2 on the bottom. So Ivywood would probably be 60 inches long, and that's 5 feet long with that sign, that's a long sign that have out the little rack on top of the stuff.
I noticed, so we've had the county coming and putting up new signs along Broadway and 11th Avenue, and it seems like, so it doesn't, what they do in neighboring cities they have 2 blades that are kind of pinched on the ends with the pole in the center. Is that double the cost because of the 2 blades? Does that help from the concern of them spinning and not being as sturdy?
It won't change this, it won't change the size of it, the price. It's not gonna be quite double, it'll be a little bit more. These are double-sided, so they're a little thicker. It helps for people who have a sign shop because then you can flip that blade over and reuse that same sign twice, but for us, we don't get credit if we send these back and they strip them off. So there's other cities that they do, where they have double-sided, so they get an extra use out of it. They'll rotate them, the blank side, and then print out new signs. And the ones you see that do that are probably the ones that have their own sign shop and that print it out.
Numbers on the right, Dave, what are those, the 2025s? Is that just a year or?
Those are your block numbers.
Block numbers. And are they required to be on our street signs?
We didn't have them required, we added them for police and fire. I don't think even when we started in 16, we had them on, I think we implemented that around 18 or 19. It's just for police and fire to be able to look up at a sign and see what block they're on, or for a pedestrian to know I'm on certain block number. I think that's helpful to have that on there.
It is, as a floral delivery guy, it's very helpful to have those on there, so.
It helps you know which way you're going to. If you're going down a street, you know it goes from 100 to 200, at least you know you're going in the right direction. I guess it does add to the sign, but I think just for the reason why it's on there is quite helpful.
Well, I personally like the color, and if it is better to do the shorter, so 3 would, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I like the color too. The second one is easiest to pretty. Yes, I did say pretty.
Mayor Roberts, Just a point of just something for consideration for the council. I wasn't here when we created our "As Good as It Sounds" tagline and our branding efforts, but it sounds like this will be the sign we'd be using for the next 10 years?
We'd replace them all to look with that logo over the next 10 years. If the logo were to change over the next 10 years, you would simply you could buy stickers that would go back over top of them to rebrand. I know of one city that changed their logo twice over the 10-year span, so the Public Works guys were really happy that they had 2 sets of stickers that they had to go on. And that does make it easy that you can go over it if that ever happens to change or logoing changes.
You can disregard my comment where I was suggesting that we could end up having a pickle if we rebranded in the next decade.
Yeah. We would to that point, we'd make sure that we know how many we've done through that point and know where they're at, and then you just go back through as part of that change.
Well, this is something I've advocated for quite some time, so I appreciate it coming forward. I think it's a great idea. It just adds to the branding. We've talked about maybe doing some monument signs to enhance that even, so I really am open to either one of those two of the shorter signs. So who wants to be the one to make the final decision on that, but
They're both very, very nice. 4 bleeds out.
I think the color one just does, people might recognize that more as that is our logo. That's, similar to here and other, on the trucks, and that just as much as hard to see, it has the tagline too, which I think is important. It's a neat tag.
They fade.
That's why you have that every 10 years. The reflectivity will go away after so many years, and the signs themselves will fade. So smart person somewhere realized that you're still good up to 10 years, and that's when you should replace them. So actually make things you can look through to test them as to.
The other test is that a 60-year-old person has to be able to see them at night with the standard beams on. That's not a joke. That's the test alternative.
Right.
So when making a motion for the option number, do we go off of the PDF online?
What I did is I put them in a different order than what they're on the PDF.
You did, yeah.
Just to see if you're paying attention.
Yeah, you did. So I want to clarify. You do off the PDF?
Yes, off a PDF, so that'd be number 4.
Four.
Yep.
Okay. I'll make a motion to include option number 4, logo on all the street name signs.
For a second.
I'll second it.
Motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Dave. All right, we have no items under discussion. Number 10, staff updates. Ryan, we'll start with you.
Mayor, City Council, no specific updates unless you have any questions.
Questions? No. Jolene?
I'm not going to touch this mic and adjust it again, so I hope you can hear me. I'm excited to formally introduce Amanda Milks, our new Deputy City Clerk, who started with us on January 5th. This is her first council meeting, so hope we haven't scared her off. But we're really excited to have her join our team and start in her new role here with the city. Secondly, just want to remind council and the public that next Monday is a holiday. It's Martin Luther King Day, so city offices will be closed. This also means that our city workshop will be held on Tuesday. So please don't show up next Monday. We won't be here, so we won't be having a workshop on Monday. Finally, I just wanted to note that I hope that we will be able to bring forward recommendations for commission appointments at our next meeting on I think it's the 26th. And at that time, we can certainly go ahead and confirm liaison designations as well. So that's all I have, but if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Abby?
Thank you. I do have some updates. I think all the council heard them last week on Friday in the weekly update, but it's some for the public to be aware of. Starting in February, Metropolitan Transit Service will start operating a local on-demand dial-a-ride shared service, so a bus, door-to-door bus service in Forest Lake. It's not all of the city, but most of the city. It'll run Tuesdays and Thursdays between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. That's going to run through the Transit Link app. So we're going to start rolling out some more information. It's going to be a slow roll, just so that we know that we're trying to get the right information out. That will also be available to anybody in the city. There's no income limitations, but that is a fee for service for those coming out. We also have released an environmental assessment worksheet for Tim's Marina. The council is aware that Tim's Marina would like to expand their marina operations to add additional docks and slips. That does require, that's a DNR mandated environmental assessment worksheet. So there's comment period between now and February 5th. This week, the Planning Commission does meet, and we're going to start talking with them about city-initiated zoning text amendments, kind of picking up where Ken and I had left off before Ken had left us, but trying to get back into streamlining some of our zoning ordinances just so that they're a little bit easier to administer. We did conduct abatement of a hazardous structure at 21164 Everton Avenue, and we should be proceeding within the next week or so on the one on 17th Street as well, 820. And then you may have seen December stats. In December alone, we had 70 complaints on different properties. It was mostly snow and ice, but with our new, our code enforcement officer position moving to full-time, he's getting caught up on all of those. And it's our hope we won't have such a lag anymore now that he's not restricted to kind of that quarter-time position. So lots of things happening in the community development department, and lots of them that the public should be aware of.
Thanks. Dave?
Yeah, going up that snow and ice, we've had a lot of troubling weeks here with the rain and then the snow and then the warm weather and then the cold weather, and we're out there trying. So I know you've probably gotten calls and concerns about some of the roads, but we're trying our best without getting rid of all of our salt with 4 months to go in the season. So we've been out today, it'll be out tomorrow, and then there might be snow again this weekend. So it's not for a lack of efforts. The guys are out there all day long trying to get as much as we can off the road. Oh, you've probably heard from residents about that, but we're out there trying. Second thing is in between the last council meeting and now, Kyle received notice that he received a $200,000 grant for the Veterans Memorial. That will fund the rest of that project. That center monument. So they have, grant hasn't been completely followed through with yet, but they've already met with the sculptor and working on an agreement for that sculpture. And one of the planning commission or the Parks and Recreation Committee at the end of this month, and then coming. He put a lot of time in that. I was watching him and he kept asking me for edits. I felt like he was writing a book and he was asking me to proofread everything, but he spent a lot of time, and it was a great grant to get. And it's one of those projects that so far down that we just wish we get it finished off, and this will get it to the finish line. So that's, wanted to thank him for putting all that time. That's
Chief Peterson.
Yeah, Mayor and City Council members, no updates from the police department, but I do want to mention it's been an honor. Sorry. Serving the citizens of Forest Lake for 26 years and 5 years prior to that with Washington County.
Chief Newman.
No updates.
Amanda. Mark?
Just a couple of updates for some opportunities through the League of Minnesota Cities. We have both the incoming or sort of a newly elected leaders institute that's available, and then also we're calling Next Level Leaders. So a program for folks that have been in the office for a bit longer. Registration closes next week, or at the end of this week. So if anyone is interested in attending those, please let us know and we can help get you registered. And then coming up in March, I believe it's March 11th, we have the Day on the Hill, Capitol Day on the Hill. I've been to that meeting the last 2 years with my previous employer, and then last year I attended on your behalf. And just an excellent opportunity to meet with our legislators, hear about the upcoming legislative session. Obviously, lots of impactful things that are going to come in front of our state body there as well. So it's an excellent event if we'd like to try to send a delegation to that. So March 11, again, is the date you want to maybe put on your calendar for that. All I have. Miller?
No updates.
No updates.
Larson?
As Abby said, Wednesday is Planning Commission meeting starting at 6 o'clock. Also, I'd like to also congratulate you, Rick, on your years of service. It's been a pleasure working with you at Washington County and also here at Forest Lake. Wish you all the best in your retirement. And with that, Happy New Year to everybody.
I really don't have anything, just welcome to Amanda. We're glad you're on board and welcome and join the team here, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If nothing else, is anyone willing to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it,
All
sir.
right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.